What is going on, New York Giants fans? What is going on? Y'all already know who we have on the board here. Same cast as always. My man Rodney from Big Blue Corner. Aaron. We'll have Chris on soon. We'll definitely have Chris on soon. But for now, appreciate you guys stopping by. Fellas, how are we doing today before we talk about today's news? Because there's a lot to talk about right now in Giants land.
Doing good, man. How's it going, man?
Not too bad, not too bad. Aaron, how's everything going with you, man?
Those comments are making me nervous at number 6.
Don't worry, man. We'll try to release some of those tensions and worries today, hopefully. But again, I appreciate every single one of you that will stop by. And if you guys are watching this after the live show, please don't forget to subscribe. I will have everyone's links to their channels in the description box below, so definitely go follow them on Twitter as well as subscribe to their YouTube channels. Let's get a couple people. I see we have some people here in the chat. Jaden, what is going on, my man? Appreciate you stopping by. 3 Cows, excited to see JJ in a Commander's uniform. I did see that. I'm not buying it, but we can talk about that for sure, because that's definitely a possibility. Chris, appreciate you stopping by, brother. Always a great time when you stop by. Independent Outsider, appreciate you stopping by, man. Let's get into it. Fellas, draft is approaching. The draft is approaching, and the smoke will soon to clear soon. But while there's still smoke, to me, this is my favorite part of the season, because this is a season where you can't trust nobody and you can't trust anything that is being said at the moment. And for the Giants being at 6, we all know that they sit in a very peculiar spot, because they do need wide receiver help. They do need quarterback help. And if they are going to trade up, they're in a good position. But if they stay at 6, they're also in a really good position to select possibly a quarterback, if not one of these elite wide receivers in this draft class. Fellas, I want to get some of your thoughts, right? With the Giants being at 6, you guys already know how I feel. Obviously, the Caleb Williams dream is dead. It's been dead. But I'm still on board for the New York Giants drafting a quarterback, whether that's Drake May, whether that's Jaden Daniels. I've been coming around to JJ, but still not on that train entirely. But I got to be honest with you guys, and I'm sure a lot of people in the chat may feel this way too. If they're not able to get a quarterback, some of these wide receivers that, probably going, into this season last year, didn't really think the Giants would be in the conversation for any of these wide receivers like Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison. But as the draft gets closer, it's a possibility that even a player like Marvin Harrison, who, don't get me wrong, I don't think will be there at 6, but it's looking like there's a world where he actually may be there at 6. Fellas, are there any of these wide receivers that you think, when you look at Neighbors or Dunze, Marvin Harrison, any of these players, think that the Giants should look to possibly take at 6? Are you more leaning towards the quarterback position? How are you guys feeling?
Well, I think what we're gonna do is somehow we're not gonna get the wide receivers like the Dunze or Malik Neighbors or anything. I feel like teams are either gonna draft or trade up hardcore. We talked about it last week where the Vikings seem to be interested in JJ McCarthy, which kind of makes sense because they're literally right next to each other when he played at Michigan. So I think if I were Joe Schoen, I would try to get like an edge at 6 or trade down, get a little bit of value, and you could still get a receiver. There is a guy at LSU, Brian Thomas, 6'4", 205. You can get him in the second round. He's not a first round receiver that we think he is. He could be right in the beginning where we'll draft the second round. So I think I would do something like that, because if we go JJ at 6, I feel like it's going to be Daniel Jones 2.0 all over again. And it's like you're just doing what the old regime did and just grabbing a guy just to grab a guy. So I think we should do something like that, unless like a Jaden Daniels is there, maybe go after him. But as far as receivers, I think we could get like a Brian Thomas in the second round and get another impactful person at 6, or even if you want to trade down.
And look, I got to be honest here. I like Brian Thomas. I think, he could be a 1B type of receiver. No slot at him, but I do think he could be a 1B. But I got to be honest, Aaron, I don't think he's going to fall to the second round. I think he could be a middle of the first, bottom of the first type of a receiver. There might be a team that, missed out on getting, the top three, top four wide receivers, and he might fall, towards the bottom half of the first round. I don't know necessarily if he gets to the second round. I take him obviously if he is there at 47, but I don't know if he'll be there. Now, I do agree with the whole JJ sentiment. Now, I like him. Don't get me wrong. I, I can see why there is some hype to him. Well, there's actually a lot of hype to him now, but I can understand some of the hype. But I'm in the same boat as you, Aaron. I don't know if I'd be willing to take the chance on him at 6. I don't think he's a Daniel Jones clone. I don't see that personally. I think that he could be a good quarterback, but I think he could be a good quarterback on a team like Minnesota or a team like Atlanta, where, the Giants, they don't have a Justin Jefferson. They don't have a Kyle Pitts. They don't have a Drake London. They don't have a Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to be a quarterback that might need a good surrounding around him. And I just don't think at 6, for me personally, that I would even take that risk. If they do, listen, we were able to see what Brian Daboll was able to do with Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor. So I'm sure he'd be able to get solid production out of the kid. But at 6, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Rodney, how are you feeling? You leaning more towards these wide receivers? You looking towards the quarterback position? How are you feeling, man?
Well, I will say this right before I give my answer. I want to give a homage to Hit Squad. I know he was feeling real down in the dumps after Chicago traded Justin Fields, but it's okay because your Caleb Williams dreams.
You kind of crashed out there, but I get what you mean, man. It hurts. It hurts. Hey, you never know. I'm just
You're
kidding.
right though.
The dream is dead. I know the dream is dead.
I will say this. I honestly want us to get a wide receiver. I really truly do. Now, if they're committed to getting a quarterback, look, I don't see anything wrong with that. I just don't want them to reach for a quarterback just because we need one. The worst thing we could do is reach on a need and it doesn't work out. Now, I'm not saying any of these quarterbacks won't work out. It's just that I believe that Joe Schoen and company believes in BPA, best player available. So if that best player available is a quarterback and he's available at 6, go for it. By all means, go for it. I don't think anybody would be upset about that. I think reaching, like trading up for one, just because we need to have one. Again, I don't agree with that. Stay put at 6. See how the draft board plays out. Add in this scenario as well. You might be able to trade back, acquire more draft capital, whether it be this year or next year. Now, this draft is heavy on wide receiver, heavy on quarterback, heavy on offensive line. I mean, you can't go wrong. Cannot go wrong. There's a lot of guys that's, you can possibly get on the back end of the first round if you decide to trade back up after, depending on what you can get as far as a haul. You could probably trade back into the first round if need be. All depends on how the board plays out. There's also good second round guys, Leggett, the kid out of Georgia, McConkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. Those are a lot of guys that possibly could go in the back end of the first, early second. So, I don't feel that we should just trade up or just throw all our eggs in one basket just because we need a quarterback. I'm in just the boat of staying put, see exactly what it is, how the board plays out. And if one of those receivers are there and they don't feel that Penix or McCarthy is worth that high pick, can't go wrong with a wide receiver. And I mean, do we need a wide receiver 1? Yes.
Oh, we have Darius Slayton, guys.
Not a reach. It's got to reach.
Yeah, with you. No, and you got some points there, Rodney. And look, there's no secret that the Giants need a wide receiver one. They absolutely do. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Darius Slayton has proved me wrong time and time again. Do I think he's the WR1? No, but I do think that he could be a nice wide receiver too. And I think if you are, and I agree with, let me pull it up right here. I agree with Independent Outsider's comment here. He says, I don't see us drafting a quarterback unless Joe Schoen is sure as he can be. And I agree with you there. Unless these guys are sure that this is someone that can win you a Super Bowl, someone that can be your guy for the next decade plus, absolutely you get that guy. But if you don't believe that, you don't force that pick. You don't make a stupid decision like you look at Chicago and what they did with Mitchell Trubisky. Now, I credit them in the sense because they had enough conviction to take that swing. And that's the thing for me is if you have enough conviction, whether I agree or disagree, just like I didn't agree with the Daniel Jones pick, but I give Dave Gettleman enough credit to have conviction that that was his guy. He took the swing, he missed. And unfortunately, it happens. I mean, you look at San Francisco, they had enough conviction that Trey Lance was their guy. Took a swing, they took a big miss.
That's
But
a big miss.
it was okay, because they were able to find their guy and, and you can't expect to have a situation like that for every team. I think that's very unique, but I'm not going to fault management for taking a swing on someone that they believe could be their guy, but I absolutely don't want them to force that pick because then you're potentially missing out on another blue chip player like a Neighbors or a Doomsday or the possibility of a Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I'll be honest, Aaron, you're kind of wild for wanting an edge at 6. But I understand your comment with you can never have enough edge help at in the NFL. I'm there with you, man. Believe me.
I mean, I do like Dallas Turner.
I like
at
Dallas
6.
Turner too. If we didn't get Brian Burns, if we didn't, I listen. I'd have no problem with that because at that point, you got someone that can bring some competition to the D line. I think they will address edge in the draft, but I think it's going to be probably like the 5th or the 6th round because I really do think that they're going to lean heavy on Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and then you also have Azeez Ojulari, who let's see in a limited capacity what he can do and hopefully if he can stay healthy. But you did say something, Rodney, that I thought was interesting. Trading back. I have personally gotten more warmer to that idea as time has gone. I was honestly originally completely opposed to it just because I really want this team to get their guy at QB. But if they're not able to get their guy, I honestly wouldn't mind trading that pick, whether that's to Minnesota and you could possibly get 2 firsts for that pick. There's some people believing that you could possibly even get 3 firsts. I think you would be crazy to turn that down. You'd still be able to get a wide receiver. You possibly could land another corner or in Aaron's case, another edge rusher with that 2nd first. And then you have one next year to where you say, okay, I have 2 first-round picks this year. I can trade up and get someone possibly if there's someone there that you believe can be that guy again that can win you a Super Bowl and be that QB for the next decade. I would entertain that idea if and only if the guy that they want is not there at 6 or possibly at 3 or 4 and those teams are not willing to trade out, which we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I just don't want them to make a stupid decision. And at the same time, I'm not going to, like I said earlier, I'm not going to get on them if they, if it's going to suck, but at the same time, like I'm going to respect the decision, just like I did with Daniel Jones. I didn't like it, but I understood that this was someone that they believed in. Let's see how it pans out. But fellas, I mean, I got to be honest with you. I really have to be honest with you. I think if I had my choice, because I don't think Harrison's going to be there, Malik Neighbors for me is that guy. I really do think that he could be that guy for you and just come in day one, be that wide receiver one, and bring credibility to your passing game. He, when you look at some of the stats for our quarterbacks last year, we might see that improve just due to Malik Neighbors alone, who has that ability like Odell Beckham to take a slant 50, 60 yards just by himself. Don't get me wrong, I like a Doomsday, but I really do think that if you are there at 6 and Neighbors is there and a quarterback, if your liking isn't there, you bring that number to the podium. You select Malik Neighbors because I do believe that he can be a difference maker. Again, electric. He's shifty. I don't know if you guys know this, but 89 receptions for 1,569 yards and 14 touchdowns. That's insane.
He
That
did
is
better than
insane.
Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, I mean, and Marvin Harrison. Listen, Marvin Harrison. I keep saying I don't think he's going to be there at 6. But I'm trying to play a little bit of mind games here with the universe. If you could push Marvin Harrison, to 6, believe me, I ain't gonna say nothing. Throw away the key. I ain't gonna say nothing. Yeah, listen. I'll call you guys, FaceTime you, and be like, I'm not gonna say nothing. I won't be upset with it because at that point, you have a blue chip wide receiver. You have someone that could. If Daniel Jones is going to be there, which obviously he will, but if he's going to play next year, you have someone which you can confidently say, we have not had this level of talent for Daniel Jones. No excuses, which there was already no excuses, but no excuses. Let's see what you can do. I wouldn't be disappointed with that whatsoever, man. I really wouldn't. But I do think he's a Charger. I think Arizona's going to trade out of 4. And I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a Charger. They would be crazy to pass up on him. But there's some teams that have Malik Neighbors as their wide receiver 1, so we'll definitely see. Aaron, are there any of the wide receivers you like personally?
There is one, and this is going to ruffle some feathers, but his number has been number 3 for around the league, and he has been in East Rutherford. So if we don't want to draft, we could sign this one guy who was marrying kicking nets, was peeing in the Eagle Stadium.
No.
Just saying, you want a solidified guy, right? You could. I'm not gonna say his name because it might go into existence. We all know who it is. He wore number 13, so maybe. That's just shooting in the dark. I mean, obviously he won't come back. He'll go to like LA or something. But I mean, he had a guy like Eli who wasn't a scrambling quarterback. He threw it right where he needed to throw it. I mean, he's not the same person, but it could help whoever comes in.
All jokes aside, Aaron, I think he goes to Miami. I really do, which that would be interesting because they did offer him a contract. That would be interesting because I don't really think he necessarily would fit what they're looking for. Hey, what do I know? What do I know? I'm just a guy on YouTube. But nah, I don't. Similar to what Rodney said to me earlier, I think that dream is dead. I was for it like 2 seasons ago, and now I'm just at a point where I've just accepted it to where it's not going to happen, and that's okay. We've gone this long without him. We'll be okay.
I'm just saying. I'm not sad about it if it doesn't.
Oh no, I'm not either. Believe
it'd be a decent insurance signage for whoever comes in.
I'd like to get a
flush the toilet again.
No,
you don't gotta play. You don't gotta play a toilet. Tudo, appreciate you stopping by, man. He says massive salutes and respects to big boss Chris, Rodney, and all diehard Giants fans in America. Hey, that's huge. Tudo from overseas. Appreciate you stopping by, man. That means a lot. Chris with the question: does the additions of Jermaine Illuminor and Runyon Jr. mean enough for the interior offensive line spots?
Absolutely not.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. And I think even if you kick Evan Neal to guard, you still need to address that position. And don't get me wrong, they've made, which I love, they made quite a few signings at the offensive line position, whether that's at tackle, whether that's at interior offensive line. But I'm for one where, you want to make sure you get the best 5 guys possible on that offensive line. So keep addressing that position until you have it. And then on top of that, you got to make sure that you have quality depth. Let's look at last year alone, right? It seems like every team last year had major injuries to their offensive line. It was almost like an offensive line clinic last year with how it was. I mean, just look at Seattle. But a lot of teams had what the Giants did not, and that was depth. The Giants need depth at the interior offensive line in itself, because I don't think any of us would have predicted that Andrew Thomas was going to miss games last year due to, a faulty play against the Dallas Cowboys. And that kind of went on, to how the season was. But I think if anything, you look at last season in it of itself, keep attacking that position. Keep attacking that position, whether that's a Cooper Beebe, whether that's, you pick up another lineman in free agency. There's going to be guys for you to, bring in, and hopefully, with Brashillo, you hope that he could coach these guys up, teach these guys how to pick up a damn stunt, but no, it's for me, and I'm sure the rest of the guys on the panel. We like the signings, good signings. Love that Joe Schoen is, making an effort, right, to address the position. But until the position is fixed and until they add quality depth, it's not enough. At least for me, it's not. It's definitely not enough. Let's see here. Rodney Tudo says, I'll buy his Saquon jersey for 50 cents. Hey.
Yeah, I already addressed that with Tudo.
Oh, yeah, I see that here. Yeah. Chris also says Adiska Isaac edge out of Penn State should be there on day 2. I gotta be honest. I personally would not want them addressing edge until maybe the 5th round. I just think, we need cornerback help. I could see them addressing safety as well if they have someone there. I could see them addressing the running back position because you're going to rely on Devin Singletary, Matt Breida, and Eric Gray and Gary Brightwell. I mean, I don't think it's going to be, something that they pick in the 2nd round, but maybe in the 4th round, there might be somebody there. But I don't know about getting an edge with, the 2nd or 3rd round pick for me personally, but I know Aaron might feel a little different.
No, I'll say this. I don't think it's an issue trying to address the edge position because Azeez Ojulari, he's pretty much the outlier. You don't know whether or not he's going to play 2 snaps and then get hurt for like the next 6 games. You really don't know. The thing that I don't want to see the Giants do, again, is force picks. And also, let's just remember this. We have issues at the cornerback position, but the problem is we need a veteran to come in. It's not that we don't have enough young players. We just don't have at least a quality veteran. I know that I think his name is Tre'Davious White. He's supposed to be coming in at the end of this week for who knows. I know there's a big injury history with him, so that's a big question mark. I just don't think that they should stop addressing certain positions.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to address those positions that that you have as a need, a valuable need. Those positions that you hold, quarterback, edge, offensive line, cornerback. Those are those positions that you need to be able to address, consistently address. But as far as Penn State edge, I heard he's pretty good. I'm not going to say he's not.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some intangibles there that I do like. The little bit of tape that I did see, I just don't think that they're going to go edge 2nd round, maybe not even the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how the draft plays out, depending on how the board looks. If they don't get a QB in the 1st, they might get a QB in the 2nd. Who knows? It just all depends on how it plays out.
Let's go get Kool-Aid.
I like
just
Kool-Aid.
To have that name.
Good one.
Yeah, I like Kool-Aid. I mean, and I got to be honest with you. And you're right. They're lacking a veteran presence, in that room. But I do think they are lacking depth too. I mean, Aaron Robinson, I'm not even counting him on the team at this point. I mean, he can't stay on the field. Darnay Holmes, I mean, you bring him back on a 1-year deal. I don't really have the utmost faith in Darnay. Flott, I know that, Flott showed some spurts last year where, against, Tyreek and against A.J. Brown. But do the Giants believe that he can be that cornerback too, alongside Deontay Banks? Are they willing to put their eggs in that basket? I don't necessarily know that.
I think he's better as the nickel. more than a 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that. I can absolutely see that, especially if he puts on a little bit more weight. But you also could throw that, same conversation here with Nick McLeod, who he looked good in spurts last year. But again, do the Giants want to put their eggs in that basket and say, we're going to roll with these guys and just, hope that our defensive line can get to the quarterback and, our secondary, that's going to help our secondary. I mean, I could see that being the case, but you would still want to address that position. And if I'm Joe Schoen and the Giants, if I'm able to get someone at 6, let's say, whether that's if they're able to get a quarterback, right? If they're able to keep that second round pick, and if they don't move up, or if they do move up and they're still able to keep that second round pick, I would roll the dice and take a corner there, due to the fact that, and I might be in the minority here, I don't think our wide receivers are as bad as some people make them out to be. We were talking about this, prior to us going live. I think Wandale, he showed, just how good he could be, and I'm expecting, him to break out this season. Darius Slayton had his best career yet so far. Best season yet of his career this past season. Jalen Hyatt, he was a little inconsistent, but I do think as a deep threat, he was pretty solid for us last year, and they were all able to do that with 3 quarterbacks throwing to them. So to me, if we could get consistent play at that position, I think, we can kind of work with what we have. Obviously, address that position, get some more bodies in there, but I would roll the dice and take a corner at 47 if there's someone there like a Kool-Aid, which I don't know if he's necessarily going to be there, to be honest with you. But I would address – no, I would take him in the second round.
Oh, no, he might be gone by then.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if he's going to be there at that point, but I also like, some of the other corners in this draft class too. I just would personally address that in the second round, due to the fact that I do have confidence in this wide receiver core, but I also do have faith that the Giants they'll be able to find, someone with the third in the third round and the fourth round. I just believe that Joe Schoen, just looking off of his track history so far and the players that he's been able to find in the middle rounds, Micah McFadden, Wandale, John Michael, Jalen Hyatt, I have trust and faith that these guys will be able to find someone that's not necessarily on our radar, and we can get some solid production out of them. But I like Tre'Davious White, but how much can we really bank that he's going to stay on the field for us? As much as I like him, and I think that, him and Banks, that'd be a nice duo, I don't know how much he's going to stay on the field. And I'd love to bring Adoree Jackson back, but the last comments that we heard from Adoree Jackson was that he wants to play for a contender. So I think that ship has sailed. So, I really do think they're going to address corner and quarterback very early in this draft. But if not quarterback and cornerback, at least get you a corner in the second round or in the first round if you decide to trade back, because that is going to be a position in need.
So are you guys giving up on Trey Hawkins? Or just kind of maybe put him in the slot if Cordell doesn't do well? Or
I'm not giving up on him personally, but I would like to see Trey Hawkins get some more development. Because, we all – well, let me not speak for you guys. I know me personally, I was buying into that hype last year, coming out of training camp. He looked good. There was some pass breakups, and then you go into the preseason and then you go into the season and, he's getting torched. So I just think, another year of development, I think that would really help the kid. And, he's a young player. There's some tangibles there. But even with Trey Hawkins, does that stop you from addressing that position and getting better at that position? I don't think so. I don't think he should. I don't think anyone but Banks in that secondary is untouchable.
Don't forget, you still got Javarius Owens as well.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, if you look at it, we have a pretty good – we have depth in the cornerback room. The question is, do we trust those young guys to go in and do what they need to do? They got to get coached up, and I believe Jerome Henderson, I believe he can get the job done. The problem is whether or not these kids are literally going to just gravitate to what is being taught and put that out there on the field. Again, Trey Hawkins had that, through the preseason, he was hyped up ridiculously. And as you say, he was getting torched. But I chopped that up to being a rookie, not in the same class as you would say Deontay Banks. But given the fact of having these kids another year outside of their rookie season, second season, maybe there's something that we can definitely look forward to seeing some sort of growth. How much growth is the question. And there's always going to be that until we see it on the field. So again, it's not like we don't have depth. It's not like we don't have cornerbacks. It's just that we're at a crossroads with everybody that's there in that room, because you still need a veteran presence, someone that can come out there, help these kids along, and then when they figure out exactly where, who goes where. I mean, I don't see an issue with Cordell Flott being on the outside. I don't think I would put him in the slot though, because I don't think he's big enough to handle tight ends. And I mean, you put CeeDee Lamb on him, I'm pretty sure CeeDee Lamb is going to toast that kid.
He's going to toast anybody. I mean, that's
exactly.
That's CeeDee Lamb.
You know what I mean?
You make some points there, though, because Cordell, and that's why I said I think he has to put on some weight. I mean, and that was something that, a lot of draft analysts were saying, going, into the draft last year, that he was going to have to put some weight on. And again, in spurts, he looked pretty good. But at the same time, again, some of these guys that we have here, they show some spurts, but there's also plays where you're saying to yourself, what the hell are you doing? And I think that's just a matter of coaching. That's just a matter of these players being developed. And like you said, Rodney, I mean, when you have a guy like Jerome Henderson, I mean, I think that kind of helps, alleviate some of the worries that you have with the secondary, because you trust that, these guys are going to come ready. I mean, I personally think that we've seen worse play in the secondary with lesser talent, because we only had Deontay Banks for about 1 year. So I have enough faith that Jerome Henderson will be able to, get these guys coached up and ready. But for me personally, I mean, I don't think even Javarius Owens, who I think is more of a safety, but I don't think any of these guys should stop you from addressing that position early, because if you're able to have 2 lockdown corners on rookie contracts, I mean, you got yourself a nice little situation there, and then you could potentially add some more pieces as time goes on. And who knows? I mean, you might have a situation like the Chiefs where they have no problems giving up a L'Jarius Sneed because they have 2 other corners. Also, another corner that's injured that was really solid when he wasn't injured. You have 3 corners ready to go that, you're not going to miss a beat. I mean, that's a luxury to have. And if you're the Giants, if you're able to get 2 lockdown corners on a rookie contract and have them under control for the next 4 to 5 years, sign me up.
I don't mind the Max Melton guy from Rutgers. He's a good 2 cornerback. He presses pretty well on man coverage, and that could be a steal, because I mean, you don't have to draft a first round cornerback. I think the best one that we've had, excluding Deontay Banks, the last like 10, 12 years, is Aaron Ross. He was a first rounder at Texas. So I think we could get Max Melton in the later rounds. Maybe he like a little Richard Sherman action, late rounder who actually is good. I'm not saying Richard Sherman, but, little diamonds in the rough. Or we could go a little Jason Sehorn route, Cooper DeJean. That's how you say it.
I was going to say, yeah,
Iowa.
Cooper DeJean from Iowa. That wouldn't be a bad option there too, especially if you trade back. That wouldn't be a bad
6 feet.
option.
That's a good size for a corner.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, you also think of, I believe his name is Quinton Mitchell from Toledo. That wouldn't be a bad option there either. Or Nate Wiggins. There's some good, corners in this draft that if the Giants do trade back, or if, let's say, there's a scenario where they decide to trade up to get one of these guys back into the first, which I wouldn't be upset with, me personally, because I think that that's going to help a position of need. Sign me up. Sign me up, because there's going to be guys there that for the Giants to take. 3 Cows says, I would take the Titans pick if the Jets might jump them for alt. I wouldn't mind it, but what are the Titans going to give up? because I really do think that Minnesota ordeal would be a better situation for the Giants because you're not moving too far back, which same thing with the Titans. You're not moving too far back,
And they're
but
more desperate.
they're more desperate. And then you're able to get another first this year. So, and you might be able to get one next year too, but you get one for this year. So you have two firsts this year. And just like we were saying, you might not even have to trade up, to get back into the first to get one of these corners or a wide receiver, or a quarterback, which I wouldn't trade back into the first to get any of these quarterbacks. I'm not the biggest Bo Nix fan. I like Michael Penix, but something, and I don't got nothing. I don't got no sources, nothing. Something tells me that he's going to be a New Orleans Saint. That's
Michael
just, I
Penix?
think he'd be perfect for New Orleans. They got Derek Carr there. He can learn from Carr. They have a solid right tackle that could be his left tackle. They got a good situation over there. They need to reset that rookie clock because I don't think Carr is their answer.
Yeah, he's literally an overpaid. What was I looking for? Derek Carr's an overpaid Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle. But how crazy it'd be if Joe Schoen stays pat, gets JJ at 6, and then teams up his buddy Roman Wilson in like the second round, give him that little insurance. Because it feels like they're kind of going like a Patriots route where they're getting a lot of slot guys playing in like that, because I'm not really sure what Kafka's going to do this year, but it just seems like they're using a lot of speed and a lot of guys who are mainly slot guys.
Oh, sorry, I realized I was muted. Yeah, I mean, we know that Daboll comes from, that Patriot tree where, you just look at the Patriots, they had a bunch of slot wide receivers playing the field and they had two tight ends. I don't necessarily want that for the Giants per se, but I don't get the feel that they're really big on these big wide 6'4" wide receivers, which actually
Can't even say that. Isaiah Hodge got
yeah, I was
re-signed,
gonna say
okay? But
Hodgins
I
and
will say though, they need to play him more. They need to play him more. He's because if
yeah.
not, he's looking like a Ruben Randall, Ramses Barton type player who's just there.
Well, you got to take into consideration the situation with the Giants last year. I mean, let's just be honest. The offense really wasn't doing much. So even if he was out there on the field, the chances of him getting the ball was what? Next to none. Plus, you're trying to get Wandale ramped up after his injury. And what's the other guy there? You're trying to get Hyatt some valuable snaps. The only other guy that you have there that you can rely on is Darius Slayton, and they pretty much tried to literally run the offense through two people: Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley. So where was he going to literally fit into that situation is honestly kind of difficult, in my opinion.
So if Darren Waller retires, would you guys want a Brock Bowers?
Where?
Not at 6 for me personally. Not at 6. And I don't think he's going to go top 10. Which that's not a slight at him whatsoever. But
he's no Eric Ebron.
No, I mean, I just feel like with the wide receiver talent that's there, the teams needing offensive line help. I do think that he's going to be within 11 to the 16 range, which wouldn't be a bad area for him whatsoever, especially if he's going to be the first tight end taken off the board. I think if you're in a trade back scenario, let's say with Minnesota, I keep bringing up Minnesota, but we know for a fact that they're one of the teams trying to trade up. So bear with me, but we know that they're one of the teams trying to trade up. So if you're Minnesota and you trade up to 6 and you're the Giants and you get 2 first-round picks, I mean, you can make a case, to select them at 11 and possibly get that wide receiver. You double up on offense. You get that wide receiver with that second first-round pick, or you get that quarterback with that pick. I wouldn't necessarily be upset. He'd instantly come in and he'd be a weapon. He'd be a nice security blanket for whatever quarterback is going to be at the helm. On top of that, I don't think he's just, a tight end. I think, and that's why I called him a weapon, he's just a receiving threat. So you could put him all over the field. And if Darren Waller retires, we'll see. But if not, you have a nice tight end core right there in Darren Waller, Darren Bellinger, possibly Brock Bowers. I don't think any fan would really be upset at that, especially if they were to trade back and select him. But for me personally, at 6, no. At that point, I'd rather go wide receiver. I'd rather take a Neighbors or a Dunze or a Harrison, for me personally.
I'll agree with you there. If we did a trade back with Minnesota and able to get another first round, by all means. The problem here is we don't know what's going on with Darren Waller. In my book, if you draft Bowers, bye-bye Darren Waller. We don't need you. Period. End of conversation, end of story. We do not need you.
And you wouldn't be wrong for that.
You know, at that point, I'm not saying that he is Darren Waller, but he's a good cop to Darren Waller. And plus, you have Daniel Bellinger. We have what? We just signed 2 blocking tight ends. Okay. That's key right there. You're not going to really necessarily rely on those 2 guys for going out and catching passes, but they're 2 blocking tight ends. So now you're freeing up options on the field for whoever the quarterback is. So in that scenario, I would agree with you on that. You could trade back with Minnesota and get another first round pick. I mean, you think about it like this. Depending on, I'm not sure where that second first round pick they have, but you could pick up a Brock Bowers, maybe, just maybe, a Michael Penix. And then in the second round, a Leggett, Franklin, you know, any of those guys poke. All depends on how their board looks, who they have higher on their board, and also how the draft board plays out. But I wouldn't be upset with that, man. I would not be upset with that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, man, it really all depends on how it plays out. And that's what makes the draft so fun, because for the first time, and I mean, last year you really didn't know what the Giants were going to really do, just because, you know, they were drafting later. Was it going to be a wide receiver? Was it going to be corner? We knew it was going to be one of those 2 positions, and we had some players in mind, but we genuinely don't know what the Giants are going to do at 6, and I think that's what makes the draft so much fun. So I'm definitely with you there, Rodney. Tudo, he says, Chris, your thoughts on Lewis, Reese, Zamet, Welsh, excuse me. Wow, let me slow down now. Hold on, Chris, your thoughts on Lewis, Reese, Zamet, a Welsh rugby player who met with the Browns and Jets. I played against him 2 weeks ago in Cardiff, Wales, and we won. Any pro rugby players better than NFL players? Now, I will be honest, Tudo. I don't know too much about the guy. I remember seeing Ari Merkov tweet that he was visiting with those teams, so that I am aware of. Don't know too much about him, but I can tell you, I mean, some of the toughest players in the league do come from rugby, so I will give you that. You know, it's a very tough league to play in. I give you a lot of credit for what you do, Tudo, because I know you're over there cracking skulls overseas. You know, and I'm wishing you health and success, man. But again, I don't know too much with them, but I will say that you know, rugby players are some of the toughest players in this league, so definitely got me there. Jaden says quarterback 2 has to be addressed for sure, and I definitely think that it will be. Tudo says also, please, everyone in the chat, hit the like button and subscribe to these gentlemen's channel, or I will find you and make you do it. I would not have that Italian stallion at my door, so do what Tudo says. Tudo also says, Chris, the Giants don't need better players by definition, but they do need better coaches and trainers. Smart and determined coaches like Coughlin will win championships, not overpaid players. And you got a point there. You do have a point there. I do think the Giants have their guys in place. Like, I trust Joe Schoen. I trust Brian Daboll. Do I trust that there's not going to be another situation like Wink Martindale? I think that's a question that someone in the media should ask, you know, John Mara the next time he sees him. Can you guarantee that something like that won't happen again? Because we can't afford for something like that to happen again. That might be, you know, really what sinks the ship. Because I think if you don't have a Saquon Barkley to reel the guys in, you know, and to buy into Brian Daboll, I mean, we've seen, you know, look at Joe Judge, look at, you know, Pat, his name is slipping me right now. Pat Shermer. Look at Ben McAdoo. You know, they have one season of success. The next season, once adversity comes, they lose the locker room, they get fired. That wasn't the case this year. We were losing these games and it was hard and there was injuries left and right, but the team still fought. The team were able to grind out some wins. As much as I hated, the little Tommy DeVito Linsanity run, I will say that I do think that it did bring the team closer together, and I do think that that really paired with Saquon Barkley helped keep this team together. So yeah, no, I definitely understand that. Do you guys have any comments on this? Well, before we go to the next segment.
Pretty much we'll have grass field right after the World Cup because they're coming to Jersey. So
that boggles my mind, and I don't want to sound like one of those tinfoil hat people, even though a lot of times I sound like them. I don't want to sound like them, but like, why is it that when soccer teams come to, whether that's MetLife Stadium or any of these other stadiums, they have no problem putting in grass, but they don't do the same for their own teams? I get, it's about saving money and cutting costs. I don't want to hear it. You a billionaire. I don't want to hear it. I really don't give a damn. You got the money for it. Stop being cheap. You'll make it up in PCLs or whatever they're called. You'll make it up with season ticket holders. You'll make it up with jersey sales. You'll make it up if the team wins. You'll be fine. But can we please get some? And I know that they addressed, the turf situation, and there really weren't a lot of injuries for the Giants, at least on that turf, in regards to ACLs. But at the same time, that'll always bother me. Fellas, let's move on to this next segment before I go on a rant. It was reported today, right? John Mara, he was able to speak with some people in the media, and some of his quotes. Not it's a two-toe. Hey, what's going on, man? Appreciate you stopping by online, Big Blue. Let's see here, Big Blue forever. Appreciate you stopping by, man. Anyways, it was reported today, some quotes from John Mara that I know we all wanted to kind of talk about a little bit today, but I'm going to go over these right now. So this was actually reported by Pat Leonard. I have this quote up right here. He says, Giants co-owner John Mara, if Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have a conviction on a quarterback at the top of the NFL draft and he supports going to get them, still confident in Daniel Jones, but says, why not bring in someone to compete and let the best man win? Has he met with JJ McCarthy yet? Not yet, he smiles. For me personally, right? I mean, we kind of spoke about the whole JJ situation earlier and how we feel on that. But to hear now, your owner, and because I have mixed feelings on the comment. I'm not going to be one of these people that are just going to be like, well, look at what John Mara said. The Giants are going to trade up for a quarterback. I'm not going to do that. But to hear your owner finally, address the situation at hand with the quarterback position, and again, what is he really going to say when, he's being asked these questions? For me personally, this doesn't really change my mind. This doesn't change my mind with how the draft is going to go. Again, we said this earlier. If you guys, were here from earlier in the stream, this is a season where there's a lot of smoke, as you guys know. You really can't trust what a lot of people are saying, really until the draft comes, and that's kind of how I'm treating it. As nice as it is, to hear Mara kind of address it a little bit, and even I'll pull up this Jordan Renaud quote here. He says, General Manager Joe Schoen and Coach Brian Daboll have a green light to draft a quarterback if they so desire. John Mara was quoted to say, if they fall in love with the quarterback and believe it's worth pick number 6 or moving up, I certainly would support that. And honestly, I think in a world where, there's a lot of people that get on John Mara for meddling in, there's a lot of people that get on John Mara that believe that, he forces, his general manager's hands and that, they're going to do what he wants. I mean, at the end of the day, it's his team. I've never really fully bought into that sentiment. I think that John Mara is actually, one of the few owners in the league that doesn't really meddle. I'm glad that we don't have a Jerry Jones, at the hand. But to go back to that quote, I mean, does that change your guys' mind? With pick 6 or them trading up possibly at quarterback? Because I'm still staying on the train that I do believe that they are going to trade up.
I mean, I said this with Kicking with Zane. Check out that YouTube channel as well, the Giants content creator. That John Mara has no choice in this because he's fumbled the bag ever since he. I mean, he fell in love with Eli just a little too long in the sense of getting another backup, like someone in the reign of Eli. Because we looked at Daniel Jones, that was a Gettleman pick. He meddled in, but he didn't because he was similar to Eli, because Daniel Cutcliffe was the same coach that Eli had, Jones has. And then even before that, there wasn't a successor to Eli. Like I just said, like we had the Ryan Nassibs of the world and all that, just guys that were just there. So he kind of needs to have a franchise quarterback because he's never had that. And if anyone says Daniel Jones is the franchise quarterback, that's not true at all. Plus, I mean, look at their track histories. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have had Josh Allen at the helm. Yeah, he was a little bit of a project, cannon of an arm. Brian Daboll's been around guys, even in the Patriots system, in the Alabama system that were going through that. He's seen like good quarterbacks. So this is kind of really it for John Mara to get back into this 21st century of the new age quarterbacks. So I like that he's saying that they can have free reigns, because I just felt like from Ben McAdoo on, it was okay, well, it's Eli or bust, or Eli-like or bust. And he just kind of stayed in those old ways, like it was going to help win championships again. It just wasn't.
I mean, for me, what do you really expect them to say? Really? There was a Brian Daboll interview where they were talking about, I guess, what do they consider as far as the situation with Daniel Jones going into the new season. He said basically Daniel Jones is the starter. What else is he going to say? He can't down on him. He can't down him, no matter what the situation is. So I think it's par for the course. He's going to say what he has to say image-wise, but at the end of the day, the meddling, I don't think it's too much now, whereas what we saw in the past, when everybody says that, of course, Mara's meddling. He doesn't want to get rid of Eli. He was hell-bent on going with Dave Gettleman for, drafting Daniel Jones. You see the dynamic, you see the shift in the dynamic now, where a lot of this is basically with Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll now. Mara's taking a back seat, as he should. Take a back seat. Let these guys who know what they have to do run the team. You just go over there, sign the checks, look pretty, hold a few kids, whatever the case may be. You do what an owner is supposed to do. Let us do the day-to-day. So, but again, what is he supposed to say? So that's the way I look at it.
No, definitely. And look, again, what is he really going to say? I don't expect him at all to throw anybody under the bus. That's not really like John Mara. So I don't really see that happening. But I did find the quotes rather interesting. Again, it doesn't change my mind as to how the draft is going to go. Well, we don't really know how the draft is going to go. But, it doesn't really change my mind with I still think the Giants are going to get their quarterback in this first round. I really do believe that. I think, we've seen Joe Schoen be aggressive. We've seen Joe Schoen also miss while being aggressive. So, you got to hope that they make the decision that's best for the organization. And you got to hope that they make, in my honest opinion, if they're going to trade up, I'm not saying you got to sell the farm, but if that possibility is there, if you are able to trade up to a 4, because I don't think New England is going to trade out of 3. I can't see it. I really don't see them not getting their quarterback. I know that they have a lot of holes, but I just see them starting on that blank slate, getting your guy. But if 4 is up for sale, if you're able to trade up to 4, I do it. I personally would. Some of the other comments from John Mara, I thought were pretty interesting too. These were per Jordan Renan as well. He still has confidence in Schoen and Daboll and believes in their process. Also, he expects Daniel Jones to be the week 1 starter at quarterback, assuming there is no setback. We could talk about that in a sec. He said Mara's still confident a grass field can hold up. Still not confident a grass field can hold up throughout a season at MetLife Stadium. And while Darren Waller's decision remains undecided whether or not he's going to retire, he's going to take some time with the decision, and the Giants are going to allow him that time. And Evan Neal will be staying at right tackle for right now. Two things, right? I think regardless, Daniel Jones will be that week one starter. I'm not the biggest fan of, starting your rookie quarterback, week one. I in a perfect world, I'd love for the quarterback to sit, and learn. If you have an Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love situation, by all means, but I don't think the Giants have that, and I don't think the Giants have that kind of timeline. So if you can have the kids sit for, good half of the season, in a perfect world, at least a year, I think that would be great. Learning from Drew Lock, learning from Daniel Jones, and being able to get, gist of the offense, because we all know that Brian Daboll's offense is a complex offense. I wouldn't have no issues with that. So I don't really think I don't think he's really saying anything out of the ordinary. I don't think he's saying anything that we all haven't heard before. We've been hearing that if Daniel Jones is healthy, he's going to be that week one starter. But for me personally, I still don't think that stops you from getting a quarterback. Because again, if you do get your quarterback, you can let him sit while Daniel Jones and Drew Lock are, because I don't think, me personally, that Daniel Jones is going to start week one. I think it is going to be Drew Lock. Have this guy sit, have him learn, and I think you'd have a good situation there. Darren Waller, I want to respect his time, and I want to respect his decision making, but he needs to speed it the hell up. Speed up the decision. Speed it up, because we got the draft approaching. That's money we could use. I need to know whether or not, which, I mean, we kind of spoke about it earlier. I think even with the Darren Waller, you should address the tight end position, but we need to know whether or not we're going to have to seriously address that position going into the draft. Because if Darren Waller decides come draft time that he's going to retire, the Giants are going to have a situation on their hands. At least me personally, I believe that. And again, that's money that the New York Giants could use. So those were kind of my thoughts on that. I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on those last bit of comments from John Mara, from Jordan Renaud.
Yeah, I got something. Darren Waller needs to stop focusing on his rap career and get back into a football mentality. Let me stop right there. First off, he needs to literally figure this out, because whether or not he goes in to the next season as, the number one tight end, I mean, they need to have some sort of resolution to this issue, this situation. They have to have a resolution to it. So hopefully it comes sooner rather than later, and hopefully it comes before the draft. So that way, again, trade back scenarios, Minnesota, whatever the case may be, they have options in front of them. So I really do think that the Waller situation needs to be resolved. As far as the like you said, the issue with what Mara said concerning Daniel Jones, look, we were talking about this earlier as far as that quarterback room right now. You got Daniel Jones, ACL. Hopefully, based off of what they're saying, he should be ready for week one. All right. You have Drew Lock there, a capable backup. But I don't think anybody wants to rest their whole entire season on Drew Lock's shoulders. Whatever they do as far as the draft, as far as a QB, that remains to be seen. I'm a firm believer that they should address the QB position, whether that's the first, at number 6 or later on in the draft. I do believe they need to address it. If not for anything, to do it because of the injury history with Daniel Jones. You have to. You'll be doing a disservice to the team, let alone the fan base as a whole, if you don't address it. 2 neck injuries and an ACL, that's not nothing to play with, especially the 2 neck injuries. So what are they going to say as far as Daniel Jones? They have to, they have to back it up. He's the number one. He's going in. He's going to be the day one starter in a conversation in the story to at least try to put that to bed. But in the back of their minds, they're probably really trying to figure out what it is that we're going to do where Daniel Jones is concerned. Again, I can't stress this enough. He has that injury clause in his contract. So if something happens to him this coming season, half of the money is guaranteed come next year. So they have to address it. I'm not sure how they will address it. Maybe it'll be another, throughout the season, it'll be another Russell Wilson scenario where they sit him so they don't have to pay him and they can get out of that contract relatively unscathed. But
Oh boy.
I mean, again, I do I have some sort of faith in Daniel Jones? Yeah, I would love to be able to see him with a revamped offensive line, a little bit, better weapons, at least a number one wide receiver. I would love to just to be able to see what the kid could do. Now, I'm not saying that I'm all full in. I do have my reservations where Daniel Jones is concerned, but I don't think I would want to literally put everything on Drew Lock's shoulders and say, yeah, you're the quarterback, you carry the season. We know what Drew Lock is. We know what Daniel Jones is. I mean, worst case scenario, we have another shitty year and Daniel Jones is still gone no matter what. As long as we have at least a capable someone that's there to be able to, again, sit the rookie if you do decide to go for a quarterback, let him learn, start him next season. New start for everybody, pretty much.
Well, I don't know where I saw it, but I think it was either NFL or Bleacher Report said that they're giving us 6.5 wins this year.
I think the Giants will. Let me not do that. We'll talk about that as time goes, but I think the Giants are going to win more games than what people think.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, you want Drew Lock to start against Philly. He is a Philly killer. Saw it last year with the Seahawks.
No,
game-winning drive.
There. I mean, I don't want to say. Let me stop. I was going to say I don't think it could get worse than what we saw last year. If anything, I think the story of being a Giants fan, it can always get worse because there's so many moments where you say to yourself, it can't get worse than last year. And boy, it can. So it absolutely can. But
worse is an understatement.
Yeah, exactly. And the Giants, they're gonna have a good opportunity, whether that's at quarterback or whether that's at wide receiver, to select someone that is going to be a key cornerstone piece to this team for the foreseeable future. If all goes right, obviously, health, everything else, all goes right. So that's one thing to be excited about. But as much as I would love a quarterback, like we were saying earlier, I personally wouldn't be upset if they took a wide receiver at 6, if there is not a quarterback there that they don't like. But me personally, I think, if you are able to get, a wide receiver, I think we would get similar production, hopefully better production, but similar production out of Drew Lock, like we saw with Tyrod Taylor. We know that he has a rocket of an arm. We know that he's going to attack these receivers downfield. My expectations are not high for Drew Lock whatsoever, but I don't think that he's a Brian Lewerke or, he's a Jake Fromm. I don't think he's like that whatsoever. He looked pretty solid in Seattle. First season, not so much. But, I think he's really coming to his own a little bit. And I think, in this scenario with the New York Giants, I mean, he's in a good position. They have some decent wide receivers out there, a decent running game, hopefully going on with Devin Singletary, a great offensive mind in Brian Daboll. So I think that he'll be in good hands. But I do think that rookie clock, I mean, if the Brian Burns contract showed anything, I think that they're just really planning to reset that rookie clock this season. I really do think that. And for me personally, I think that's the move. That's the smartest move that the New York Giants can do, because going forward, once you get that Daniel Jones contract off the books, I mean, being able to bring in more talent to help your team also in the draft as well, but bring in more talent to your team. Let's say you can't get that WR1, this year. do you say to yourself, okay, let's say you have a pick next year, knowing that you have a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, you could say to yourself, okay, you know what? We can make a trade for an Ayuk or whatever, you put X name wide receiver who's on the trading block at that point. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of signing these wide receivers to big contracts, but that's something that they'd be able to entertain because they have a player on a rookie contract and it opens up that window for them. So, it's really interesting. Again, the Giants are in a great position right now, and we got to hope that they make the right decision, for the team. And I'm going to trust whatever Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll do. I'm not in the building. So, even if I don't agree with it, I'll come around to it, and I'm gonna put my faith in them. But fellas, that's all I had for y'all today. Appreciate every single one of you guys that were able to stop by in the chat. It really does mean a lot. Please don't forget to subscribe to these guys. We do have their links to their YouTube channels in the description box below. So definitely go over to subscribe to their channels. It really does mean a lot. Aaron, Rod, do you guys have anything you guys want to say before we head out?
Malik Neighbors at 6.
I'm not upset with it. What about you, Aaron?
That's the pick.
Yeah, I'll go Blake Neighbors at 6 as well.
Okay. I'm going to go Drake May, pick 4. Thank you.
That's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
This is how it's gonna go, and then I'll send you guys off from here. It's gonna go Caleb, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Drake May to the New York Giants. You heard it here first. I'm telling you, that's how it's gonna go. But fellas, appreciate you guys stopping by, and again, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much.